Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Microsoft Office Addins community call. Thanks for joining the call today. Let's take a look at the agenda. Joining us today to present is Juan Balmori, Senior Program Manager, who's going to talk about Outlook add-in compatibility with COM and VSTO add-ins. And also joining us is Abid Rahman, Program Manager, who's looking forward to a discussion around what your top scenarios and blockers are around the Word.js API. And also joining is Aishwarya Iyer, software engineer, who's going to show some of the new PowerPoint.js APIs that are under development. And then I'll be doing a presentation. David Chestnut, Senior Dev Writer, that's me. I'm going to be showing a new contextual tab sample that we have for PNP. So just a couple quick announcements as we go along. If you have any questions, just type them into the chat and we will answer those as we go along. If there's any questions we don't get to, we post a summary of this call afterwards. The call is recorded and we post a blog summary. We'll answer any questions we didn't get to there. And one more thing, just please keep microphones muted so that we don't distract the presenters. And with that, let's go ahead and get started with Juan, talking about Outlook add-in compatibility.
All right, thank you very much, David. Hello, everyone. Hope you guys are doing great. So we're going to be talking a little bit about adding compatibility with COM VSTO add-ins, or web add-ins compatibility, or better said, I want to talk about how can your VSTO or COM add-ins in Outlook can coexist with your web add-ins. So let me tell you this. So obviously, we support both platforms. So the critical question here is, what can I do to run in Windows a COM add-in instead of the web add-in, just in the Windows platform? So a long time ago, actually in May 2019, we actually released a feature that we call internally COM to Web. That was actually, it's working since then for Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. So the way that it was achieved is that in the manifest of your web add-in, we actually enabled in the schema equivalent add-ins element. And in that element, you can actually say, for example, hey, when you activate this add-in on the client, you find a COM add-in or a VSTO add-in with prog ID foo, in this case, Contoso COM add-in, then basically suppress the web add-in and just leave the VSTO add-in running, no? And the reason why we did this is because there were, as people are moving to web add-ins and the value proposition the web add-ins provide to run multi-platforms, it was the case that with VSTO add-ins you can create, and this is to some degree still true, more richer experiences within Excel, Word, and PowerPoint in Windows, right? So basically the idea was, hey, we have a story that is multi-platform, so we have a web add-in that runs in online and runs in Mac and iOS, but we rather run the VSTO add-in in Windows. So you can use this feature to do that. The problem is that in Outlook, we didn't support this feature, right? And the good news that I have for you is that we are going to support it now. But the reason why we're doing it now is because, for all those folks that are creating extensions for Mac, there is a technology that it's called injection-based plugins that you can actually use to extend in Mac today, for Outlook. You can find more information here. The news that we're giving everybody is that these types of add-ins we're gonna cease to support them. They're not gonna work anymore starting on May 2021, right? And many of our customers are asking us for, hey, yes, we're gonna start building our web add-ins for Outlook, but in the meantime, we want to keep a good experience in Windows. So basically, we got your back, guys. We're shipping this feature so that you can actually, during that transition of your COM or injection-based add-ins into a web add-in, you are going to be able to use this in Outlook as well, just in time before we stop supporting injection-based plugins. All right, so that's the good news. Now, how is this going to work? So basically, for Outlook, we're going to have a couple of options. And so we are going to have a manifest-based approach, which is exactly the same as we have today for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So you're basically going to have the equivalent add-ins, element within the manifest, and you're going to be able to specify the prog ID of the COM add-in you want to suppress if your add-in is installed. Now, on top of this, we are also going to ship a couple of registry entries, and that you can set them up via group policy within organizations. That is going to be basically on this registry. Okay, can be set up again via GPO, and basically you're going to be able to do the mapping here. So basically, the entries in that registry are going to be about what prog ID maps to what add-in. So you need to specify the ID of the web add-in mapping to what prog ID, and that's it. If that's in the registry, basically what's going to happen is that the VSTO add-in will be activated and not the web add-in. So why we're exposing these two options? Because the registry, I think the registry entry is going to ship way faster than the manifest, and we want to make sure that you guys have a story for your add-ins in Windows by the time we block the injection add-ins in Mac. So this is going to be available probably within the next few weeks. You're going to be able to play with the registry entry, and the manifest support is going to come a bit later because we have to update the schema on Exchange on-prem, and that takes a few months, right? So I just wanted to do this quick announcement here. The target build is this one that you see on the slide. So you're going to be able to preview it very soon in our beta channels, and hopefully we can get feedback from you and make sure that it works as you expect. So that's pretty much what I have for you today. I see that there are a few questions. Jacob is asking if the VSTO will be phased out over the new Office add-ins in the future, or are we both planning to support it indefinitely? The answer to that question is, right now, there's no plan to stop supporting VSTO add-ins. So we have the plans to keep supporting both platforms. Obviously, you see the investments that the team is doing. Most of it is around the web add-ins model. There's any deprecation plans that we have as of now. No, Russell is asking if Excel, Word, and PowerPoint require a registry entry. The answer to that question is no. Excel, Word, and PowerPoint just work with the manifest-based entry as of now. The reason why we did the registry for Outlook is because of timing issues regarding the injection deprecation. And there are many other comments here, but in the meantime, I will just switch to the next topic. Thank you very much.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Juan. My name is Abid. I'm a PM here on the Office platform team. So I just want to spend the next few minutes talking about some Word.js APIs and trying to learn from everyone in this call. So unfortunately, over the past several years, we haven't been able to invest in new capabilities for Word extensibility. However, the team is optimistic that over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll be able to start making those investments again. So our goals for this current quarter is to really learn about what are those top scenarios across Word add-ins, and we want to learn from the partners in this community call. We want to use those learnings to really understand what those key functionality gaps are, what are those API requests, what are the blockers that's really preventing you from creating a successful Office add-in. So using that list, we hope to find some trends, some common scenarios, and that way it will help the team prioritize those top requests. So we know not only what to build, but what to build and also when to build it. So as part of that, I have had the chance and opportunity to reach out to a lot of people in this community call already, and we've sat down one-on-one, trying to understand their Office add-ins, trying to understand what blockers they have, and how we can help to unblock those. So I want to essentially extend that invitation out to everyone in this call. So I have this survey here, and I'll post this link in the chat as well. And it would be great if you could take 2 to 5 minutes just going through this survey. And all it does is essentially gets a good idea of, okay, what are those key top scenarios in Word extensibility? What are the blockers that you have, and how can we help you unblock them? If you do want to have a follow-up conversations regarding Word extensibility, regarding any questions or concern you have for Word Office add-ins, and even if you don't currently have a Word Office add-in, but you're interested in creating one, I would love to talk to you. So please make sure you do leave your email address in that survey as well, and we will reach out to you after the call. So that's mostly all I have from me, and I'll give it back to the next presenter here.
Thank you very much, Abid. So please, guys, fill the form that David just shared, and let's move to our next topic, PowerPoint API updates with Aishwarya.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Aishwarya Iyer, and I'm a software engineer in the PowerPoint team. Basically, the reason for this call today is because since our last community call update in September last year, we've been doing a bunch of stuff, shipping new APIs and progressing APIs through different channels. So just wanted to jump in, give you all a quick update of what's going on, and also ask you all to play with the existing APIs and give us feedback. We also have Owner from my team, who is a software engineer, and Amit, who is a program manager, who are in the call, and they would help answer any questions that you may have along the way. So what's been happening since our last call in September? So in that call, we presented the insert slides from Base64 API, which was in the preview channel that time. Now, early in Jan this year, we've pushed that to GA, and we've also pushed it along with a bunch of other slides, which include a bunch of other APIs, which include the ability to delete slides, as well as some APIs to access the slide collection and get the various slide objects and metadata on the slide object. And the official documentation link is here, and it has a very good detail of how to use the API and various examples. After that, we've been working to push out the different APIs in set 1.3, and most of them are in the preview channel since a couple of weeks now. And we would love if you could play around with the APIs in this set and give us feedback. So what are the categories of APIs in this set? One is it has a bunch of APIs for slide management, which means that in 1.2, we provided basic slide collection APIs where you could get like the ID of the slide, the count of the slides in the deck, and so on. But in this version, you get some more sophisticated data points. For example, you will get the ability to retrieve all the slide masters on the deck and also the different layouts on the various slide masters. And you will also be able to get what is the current slide master of any slide in your deck. So basically, all of the retrieval APIs around the template of your deck as well as the theme of your slide, we've released that. Apart from that, we also added another API for adding slide. This API basically lets you add a new slide into the deck at the end of the existing slide collection. And today, by default, you can only add at the end of the collection, but soon we would also be releasing the ability to add it at any position in the slide where you can specify the position. But what's special about this add slide API is that you will be able to specify the slide master and the slide layout that you want the new slide to be of. So it's an optional param, so it's up to you. Like if you have custom templates that you want to apply on newly added slides, you would be able to use that. Again, like all this is very well documented in here. I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of stuff that's already available for the public to try out. And we also added a list of shape collection APIs where you will be able to get access to the number of shapes on each slide and then the ID and other metadata of shapes. So you will be able to pull, basically these are all getter APIs where you'll be able to pull shape metadata out and display it. In the next round of APIs, which are not yet on preview, but currently under development, that's where we would be providing shape manipulation APIs. In 1.3, we also have another set of tag collection APIs, which are not yet on preview, but they are on their way and should be there in a couple of weeks. So tags are basically custom key value pairs that you can associate to different levels on the presentation. So you can add custom tags to your presentation or to your slides or to your shapes. So we've also added like a bunch of APIs to add, delete, and retrieve tags at various levels on the deck. This is on its way to preview. We will be on the lookout for it. Now, I also wanted to quickly give you a glimpse of what we are working on currently. So this is not yet documented anywhere, or this is just like to give you all a feel of what to expect in the near future, probably in a couple of months. And they are basically more additions to the shape collection APIs. So the ones in preview today are getters on the shape collection, but the new APIs that you're working on are basically for manipulating the shape collection. So you'll be able to add, delete, and retrieve shapes based on their type. We are also working on a set of customer data and custom XML APIs. Basically, customer data is so that you can, again, add key value pairs storing different customer data values in your deck. And you also have custom XML to store other data in XML format. And we're also working on building a bunch of text range and text-based APIs to manipulate them and retrieve them, and a couple of APIs on selecting slides and shapes. So yeah, that is basically a quick summary of what we have. I also created a simple demo on my local server. Since the APIs that I just spoke about are very well documented and a lot of them are getters, so I'm not going to go into each and every one of them since they're pretty straightforward, but I'll probably just walk you through a couple. And also I did it on my local server just so that I can show the APIs on various channels at the same time. So let's start with a simple delete slide API that I spoke about. This delete slide API is present on the slide object. So once you iterate and get to the slide object, you can call the delete function. So for the demo, if I just enter slide 2, which is a zero-based index 1. So this is slide index zero-based index 1. So out of the out of the blue slides that were present, you can see that one of them went away, and that was the slide that I deleted. So basically, it's a very simple API. The other APIs that I spoke about, let me just show you what I mean by the slide master and slide layout. So this API, so all I'm doing in the back is basically just calling presentation.slidemasters and just rendering it. So this says what slide masters are present. So as you can see, there are 2 themes on this deck right now, and there's also another slide master present. So we are listing them out. We also have APIs to show the slide layout information. Let me show that as well. So because the slide layout is present on the slide master, if I provide the slide master index, so we saw that there were 3 masters. So now you can see all of the layouts that are present here. And when I say layout, I mean all of these values here. So when you do an add slide, you will be able to specify which layout you want, which presentation that you want to apply on the new slide. Let me also run a simple add slide example. So by default, you don't have to specify anything. All the params are optional. So if you don't do anything and just click add new, so it just adds a new slide at the end of the presentation, and it follows the template of the previous slide. If you want, you can also specify the master. So right now, I'm just going to specify one of the ones that we just saw some time back. So as you can see, master index 1, there were 2 slide masters with the blue theme. So you can see that I was able to add it with the specified theme. So yeah, so since these are super simple APIs, I'm just doing a super simple walkthrough of the APIs here. Insert template is not really a new API. It's the insert slide using base64. I just added it in case I wanted to add a new template while I demo. But since we already have some custom templates here, I'm not doing that again. And then we also have APIs at the different level, like slide, shape, and presentation. This API is a bit slow on my server, but basically what it does is it tries to add a key value pair. So I'm just putting a sample key and a sample value. So it goes in and adds it, and it displays the value here, but I noticed that my server is running a bit slow this morning, so you're not able to see it. But it's again another very simple retrieval API where a key value pair would have been added on the slide object. Yeah, it's a simple get API, so there's not really much. I can just show you the code here. So for the tags collection, so basically what it does is, what I was displaying was the tags on the slide level. Then I also had code to render the count of the tags on the slide. And basically I was looping through them and displaying the key and the value. So it was super simple. So that is pretty much it. I just wanted to, this presentation was mainly so I can make the community aware of what we've been doing in the last couple of months since September. So yeah, please go ahead and try the APIs on our various channels and give us feedback if you have any. And that's it. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Aishwarya. That's really great information. Up next, we'll be talking about the contextual tab sample. So let me switch over to, I've got Excel running here, and we put together a contextual tab sample for folks to show how you can build contextual tabs and use them. So I have the add-in running, and it's got a task pane, and the idea is I can import some data and work with it in a table. So let's say I pick a SQL database. And by the way, all this data is just mock data. It's not going out and actually connecting to anything, because we're trying to keep the sample simple and just focused on the contextual tab part. So I import my data, and it goes and creates this table from the SQL database, and it's just a bunch of products and quarters and numbers coming in. And the interesting part is now I have this table data contextual tab that popped up, and it's only there when I'm in the table. If I go move outside of the table, you'll see it drops off. If I go back inside the table, it comes back, along with Excel's. And so I'll just point out a few key things here, because we're going to look at JSON that describes this in a second. And so basically, this is my tab, my table data. I have a menu button here that's in one group, the group's data sources. I have a sync data group and also a task pane group. So it's 3 groups. The show task pane, like if I close my task pane over here and then the user wants to get it back, that does an action. Oh, that's a debug. You can ignore that. It runs a little task to reopen that task pane. These others call code that's in the project itself. So if I go and start making changes on the table, like maybe I just decide to zero those out, I can then submit those and update the mock data, pretending that's going out and updating the SQL database. I can also switch. So I can say, hey, let's go over to the external Excel file. So it's going to reload this. And then I still have my context here. You can see now it's set to the external Excel file. The idea is like maybe you're working with 2 data sources that are super similar, but they're in 2 locations. So you can switch between them and work with them. And that's the contextual tab. So let me switch to the project itself. This will be published to the PNP Office Addins repo later today. So it's about to go out the door. And the key parts are this is generated by YoOffice, and then it was updated to use the shared runtime in the manifest. There's an article on that, which I can share a link to. And then this is the part that's the contextual tab part. So you need to create your JSON that describes the ribbon, the contextual tab. And there's 2 key sections. There's an actions section and the tab section. I kind of like to start down here thinking about this, because you see the UI and you're like, okay, well, how does my JSON describe that UI? So there's one tab in this case. Everything in here is going to have an ID, so that's a pretty consistent pattern. Everything in here is going to have a label, so you'll see that a lot, as well as like visibility tags and so on. And remember, we had 3 groups, so this tab has 3 groups in it. We have one for the data sources. You'll see this a lot too, where we specify the icon. You have like 3 different sizes for the icon. It's just pointing to my. There's only one icon that gets used for all these, because we don't really have an icon library for our samples. Then you specify the controls to go on there, and you specify what type. So in this case, remember that first one was a menu with a drop down with 2 items in it. So I have my menu, the label, the tooltip. On my menu, I then have items. So I have my first menu item with its ID. It's going to be, it says, hey, I can go get something from an external Excel file. And then here's its label. And then with each of these, the buttons and the menus, you'll see they have an action to run. So it's going to go run this ribbon action. And the way I set this up, you could have a separate action for each one, but I have them all just use the same one, which I'm going to show why I do that here in just a sec. So you'll notice that every menu item runs ribbon action. My button refresh that's here on this other group also calls run ribbon action. But you see it's kind of the same pattern. All your actions are specified as type, so I only have 2. I've got my run ribbon action, which says it's going to go execute a function, that's its type. And the function name is also run ribbon action, which I might change that name before publishing this, just because I don't want anyone to get confused. This will be an actual function in the JavaScript. So I need something with that name in my JavaScript. This one here is just the ID for this JSON. So all the elements are referring to this ID, and then this ID says, hey, Office, when someone clicks on this thing, go call this function. Then this next one is, I'm going to show my task pane. So its type is a show task pane, and then you give it the HTML to load for that task pane. So that's it. That's those two actions. So let's take a look at run ribbon action. I'll show you how that works. That's going to be over here in my commands.js. So what I'm doing is, because I get past this event, I'm just taking a look at the source ID that's in there. And there are all those IDs that were in that JSON. And I just put like a little 3-letter abbreviation between them so I can kind of keep track when I'm looking at these, what they are. So I know that's my submit button. This is my refresh button. This is a menu item. And for each of these, it just calls out to the actual action I want to run, which is another function. The reason I did it this way, you could do these separately, but I did it this way just because at the end, you always have to remember to call event.completed. And I noticed that as I was adding things and adding more functions, occasionally I forget to call that, and you get very strange behavior on the ribbon if you don't call event.completed. You don't get any errors. It just buttons stop working and it just gets weird. So this way I knew I wouldn't forget to call that. Also, sometimes I want to call these actions from somewhere else in my code, like maybe from the task pane. So I don't want to have to construct an event object or deal with that when I'm calling these things. And the third reason I did it this way is just because if I refactor or rename these, I don't have to remember to go back into the JSON and rename it there as well, or end up with Office trying to call something that doesn't exist. So I kind of like this pattern, but you don't have to do it this way. If you want to have separate functions, you can. Then each of these, they just kind of do what they say. So if someone clicks on the submit button, we want to go update our mock data source with table data. So we call a get table data helper function, pulls the data out of the table, and then we just set our mock data equal to that. Let's see. So I'm going to kind of skip over the actions. Here's where we set up our mock data, and then we have a global. And on the global, important things to point out here, we're going to call that get contextual ribbon JSON. Remember that was back over here where we set up the JSON, and I'm going to have this function that just returns it. So go back over to command. We're going to store that in the global. And we keep track of it because as you want to set things to visible or invisible or enable buttons and so on, you'll need to track that state. So this is how we do that. And then here, we're going to take that run ribbon action button and put it on the global so that it's in the global namespace. And the reason for that is because this name will get minified when we build. And once it's minified, Office won't be able to find it. So we need to make sure it's in the global namespace so it can find it. And again, if you had like 10 different actions in your JSON instead of just one, you would need to put all 10 of them in the global namespace like this. So how do we create it? Let's go over to our task pane HTML, and when that loads, task pane JS, when that loads, our Office onReady gets called. And so here we're going to call it, we're going to get our global, and we're going to pass that contextual tab JSON, that entire thing, to this office.ribbon.request create controls. And you only get to do this once. So whatever you need to have on your contextual tabs, it needs to all be in there. You don't get to add or subtract to this thing afterwards. So if there's things on there, but you're not going to show them yet, just make sure they're in there, but they're invisible. Also, make sure you await it. I made the mistake of not doing this first time I was putting this together, and one of my events was firing and then immediately trying to update this ribbon before it was created, and you'll start getting errors about IDs not existing and stuff like that. So that's just a safety tip. Make sure you wait for it to be done. So that's how you request it. And then if you're going to update it, you go to utilities here. We have, well, for example, an on-changed event. So we track if the table changes, and this on-change will get called. And if we see that, say we moved outside we see that the table's been changed, we're going to set our sync buttons to be enabled. So we want to turn the refresh and submit buttons on, so we call with true. So this helper function will do an update. Let me go down to that. So we'll get our global, and then this is kind of the interesting part. We go into that JSON that we have, and we start navigating down through the tabs, the groups, the controls, until we get to the control we want, which in this case, we know the first one is, I think, the refresh, and then the next second one's the submit. We set their visibility status, and then we call office.ribbon.request update. So that's how you do that. And it's the same thing if you're turning your contextual tab on or off. So if the table gets the focus, we'll call this with true, and then we'll go down to our and set its visibility to what was passed in, which let's say that's true. And we call our request update, pass in the JSON for our global, and then that'll update it because we've set visible true, it'll now get displayed. So this is the key. You want to update it, call request update, and pass your JSON. And this is why we track it in a global. So I think that's pretty much it. This will get published later today. We'll send out a tweet about it once it's available. And then, let us know if you have any feedback on it. So I'm going to go back and I want to go to our community spotlight and recognize folks who have been helping us with community efforts. I want to say thank you to Hirano and Maarten van Stam. Maarten's been helping us with PR reviews on the PMP Office Addins repo on our samples, so we appreciate that. And Hirano is helping us with an upcoming AMA, which is a good segue to what she's helping us with. So we're on February 16th. We're going to have an Office Scripts AMA. So if anyone out there works with Office Scripts and you have some questions you want to ask around it, definitely go to this link and check it out. So go to aka.ms/Office Scripts AMA. And then moving along, if you want to help us with community efforts, we definitely appreciate it. Take a look at we have an Office.js docs PR repo, which is where our docs are. So, you can help with things like, if you find typos and you want to submit a PR to fix them, that would be fantastic. Helps us keep up on the docs. Also, the PMP-Office Addins repo, which is where our samples are. If you see better ways to do things in the samples, or you have new ideas for samples you want to submit, definitely go submit a PR and help us out. And we'll recognize you in the community spotlight. In terms of Q&A, let me take one more look at the Q&A, but I think we had one question come in. It was kind of late. It was like yesterday afternoon about an issue that someone was encountering. And if you're on the call, I saw the issue is out on Office.js, so it is being tracked. So what I'll do is I'll follow up with the team and just make sure someone takes a look at that. That's probably a good place to have it. And we'll also post an update in the blog summary afterwards. I just didn't have a chance to check in with the team on it because it was kind of a late coming question. Other questions out there? Let's see, can contextual tabs display info in the task pane? Oh, that's interesting. I would think you could, because the contextual tab, if you click a button, it's just going to call one of your functions in JavaScript. And in that function, you could go update the task pane if you wanted to. I don't know if that's what you mean, but you could certainly do it that way. The tabs, from Office's point of view, don't interact with the task pane, but you could certainly do it in your code. And did you say it is possible to enable, disable, and show and hide buttons, but not add and remove? Yes, that's correct. So when you create your ribbon, make sure any buttons you need are in there. If you don't want to show them right away, just make sure their visibility is set to false. Because once the ribbon's created, you can't modify it. You can just make things visible or invisible or enabled or disabled.
Hey David.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Care. I think the question was, can you enable, disable buttons on the ribbon? And I think so that capability does exist, just to clarify. I put a link to the doc in the window.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Care. Does the function run in the same process as the task pane? Yes. It's using shared runtime. You have to use the shared runtime to work with contextual tabs, which means your task pane code, if you have custom functions, anything, it's all going to be in the same process, I guess you could think of it. So yeah, all the global data gets shared across the task pane and across any of your ribbon code and so on. Let's see. The authentication fallback to SSO is said to be mandatory. I'll reach out to the team and follow up on this SSO question.
I'm also reading, so let's follow up after the call.
Okay, thanks, Juan. All right, so I'm going to move along. So if anyone on the call is new to Office Addins, here's some links and resources to help you get started. We have an AKA link to the Office Addins docs that you can go check out. On there, you'll find a series of 5-minute quick starts. So like you can jump into Excel or PowerPoint or Word, or we have a lot of these little quick starts just to kind of see how it works and build your first add-in. If you want to be doing automation of Excel tasks, you can also check out Office Scripts. In the lower left here, there's an AKA-MS for Office Scripts docs. And we have developer resources for folks to use and check out. There's the Microsoft 365 Developer Program, which I highly recommend if you're doing any building and testing of add-ins. It gives you a free tenant for the purpose of building and testing add-ins. Script Lab is a nice add-in that you can use that helps you run sample code inside Excel or Outlook and see how it works. So it's kind of nice just to check out code without having to set up a dev environment. We also have our Office Addins documentation and also some custom functions information if you're working with custom functions in Excel. If you want to engage with us, if you have questions about how to get things working, go to stackoverflow.com and use one of these tags. So there's the Office.js tag if you're working Office. There's also Outlook web add-ins to work with Outlook. And then there's Office scripts for the Office scripts area. On GitHub, we have an Office-JS repo. That's if you are encountering some kind of bug or issue with the platform, then let us know there and we'll help you out. And then if you have ideas for new features you'd like to see developed, go check out the Office spdev.uservoice.com and give us a suggestion or upvote one if you see one there that you like. You can also send us a file or found from inside Office to give us feedback. This isn't the only developer community call that's out there. We have lots that are going on each month. So if you're interested in adaptive cards or SharePoint, Power Apps, or any of these other areas, jump on these calls. There's also a list of all of our calls if you go to aka.ms/M365devcalls. And then finally, we're kind of at the end here, so I'll just say thank you, everyone. We'll be posting a recording of this call soon after on our Microsoft 365 Developer YouTube channel. There's a link to it there. You can also follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev. And the next call will be coming up on March 10th at 8 a.m., second Wednesday of every month. There's a link there. If you don't already have an invite to the call, you can get the invite from that link at Office Addins Community Call. And if you want to submit any questions in advance, there's a forum you can go put questions on at aka.ms/Office Addins forum and let us know, and we'll put them on the Q&A for the next time. So with that, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the next call.